So as we mentioned earlier in the show, President Biden has spoken out for the very first time about the sexual harassment allegations against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Our Jerika Duncan reports.
Stepping off Marine One, the president said that Democrats should wait and see.
Do you think Governor Andrew Cuomo should resign? I think the investigation is underway and we should see what it brings us.
And some lawmakers want action now. So far, 18 New York congressional Democrats have called for Cuomo to resign, including New York Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand.
It's clear that Governor Cuomo has lost the confidence of his governing partners, as well as the people of New York.
On Friday, a seventh woman accused the governor of sexual harassment. In a personal essay, Jessica Bakeman writes that she didn't think the governor wanted to have sex with her, but that he wanted her to know she was powerless. The former Albany reporter says there were multiple occasions where Governor Cuomo put his hands on her arms, shoulders, the small of her back, and her waist in view of colleagues. On Friday, the governor again denied the claims that he inappropriately touched anyone.
I never harassed anyone. I never abused anyone. I never assaulted anyone. Now, and I never would, right?
And he's adamant that it is not affecting his ability to govern at a critical time for the state. But according to the Washington Post, New York's vaccine czar, Larry Schwartz, has been phoning local officials in order to gauge their loyalty to the governor. According to the report, one official believed getting vaccines to his area could suffer if Schwartz was not pleased with his response.
So for more on this, let's bring in Josefa Velasquez. She is a reporter for The City, an independent nonprofit newsroom that has been following this story very closely. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's start with what was at the last bit of Jerika's story there, that the Washington Post is reporting that Larry Schwartz, sort of the vaccine czar, was calling county officials to gauge their loyalty to the governor. Have you heard anything from county officials about this?
So a few county officials have mentioned that they have received calls from Larry Schwartz over the last week or so. And, pre-COVID times, this isn't something that is uncommon. Larry Schwartz used to be a top aide to the governor who has since gone to the private sector and has now come back to lead the vaccine distribution response for the state. And some folks have said that they felt intimidated by this, that they thought that if they didn't publicly support the governor during these times, that the vaccine distribution in their counties would suffer from it. So while this sort of outreach was typical of the Cuomo administration before the last few weeks, it's really taken on new scrutiny since the sexual harassment allegations have been levied against the governor.
So last week, we also learned that leaders in the New York State Assembly announced an impeachment investigation into Governor Cuomo. What's the latest on that?
So because New York doesn't really have a precedent for impeachment, everyone is sort of trying to figure out how this process goes. So late last week, as you mentioned, the State Assembly okayed an investigative committee to see whether there are grounds to impeach the governor. That investigation itself could take weeks. And right now, we're sort of at the start of that investigation. People are getting together and trying to figure out what information they would need to find grounds to impeach the governor. And the only time this has ever happened in New York's history was more than a century ago. So there isn't really a referral that they could make to see how this has played out previously. So we're in the early stages of that investigation. At the same time, running concurrently is the Attorney General's investigation into the sexual harassment allegations made against the governor. So you have two investigations running parallel to each other, and the Attorney General has said whether or not the governor remains in office, this investigation into his administration is going to continue.
So Sunday, we heard from President Biden. He was asked about his take on whether or not the governor should resign. What do you make of his response? Certainly, there have been high-profile Democrats that have been very open about their feelings about whether or not he should remain in that position. What's your take on what the president said?
So I think over the last few days, everything has sort of hinged on whether or not Joe Biden will say that the governor should resign. On Friday, the dam broke in many ways against the governor, where you had all these members of Congress say that the governor should resign, along with Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand. And everyone was waiting to see what Joe Biden had to say. If Joe Biden says that the governor should resign, then that was sort of the nail in the coffin. But, the president has said, let's wait and see on this investigation, which could take weeks, could take months. And it comes at a critical juncture for New York. Our state budget is due by April 1, and there are questions as to whether the governor can effectively govern during these times, and whether or not he'll be a distraction to the way that the state functions and how business is done on a day-to-day basis. I think that the president is taking a wait-and-see approach because, as everyone has mentioned, they don't want another Al Franken on their hands, and everyone is afraid that Democrats are cannibalizing their own. So I think the president is being more cautious about things in a way that some Democrats are unhappy with, but I guess we'll wait and see.
So before I let you go, I got to ask you about the latest woman to come forward. We saw her in Jerika's piece, claiming that in 2014, Governor Cuomo touched her at a holiday party, making her feel uncomfortable. So Jessica Bakeman said that what she felt was that the governor was trying to make her feel powerless. And make her feel small and weak. So this is a little different, perhaps, than some of the other accusations against him. But can you talk a little bit about how, what she's saying fits in with what some of the other women have said about Cuomo as well?
So Jessica and I actually worked together in Albany for quite a number of years. And it's all part of the same thread that the governor made women feel small and powerless and tried to disarm them by using, their gender against them. Jessica's essay, which is incredibly powerful, had some of the same details as other stories that have emerged over the last few weeks, that the governor used his position to make people feel uncomfortable. And that is a thread that we have seen not only with several women who have worked for him, who have accused him of sexual harassment, but several young female reporters who have covered his administration. He's never let you forget that you were a woman, as Jessica's essay is titled. And really, Albany is this strange land and this strange place where you have a lot of really, really powerful people and a lot of folks who are straight out of college. This is perhaps their first job. And it does have this really strange dynamic where people are very power hungry and willing to exercise that power. I think a lot of the themes that Jessica brings up are also emulated in some of these other accounts by women who have accused the governor of using his position and his powerful role to intimidate them.
Josefa Velasquez, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.